to introduce Rabbi Shmuley to speak to you for the next few minutes before the main lecture begins.
I can bring some chairs.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Not Tova. How was Rosh Hashannah? So as if 3 days of prayers are not enough, we're back for more. It's like a marathon. All davening all the time. What is the number one complaint that wives have against their husbands? Anyone know? What is the number one complaint that wives have against their husbands?
They don't listen.
Sorry, wait, let's go one at a time. What's sorry?
Not home enough.
Not home enough. Actually, most wives are happy that he's not.
They don't listen.
And when he comes home, she says, "Why don't you go out and have a good time?" No, I'm sure many wives complain that their husbands are not home enough, but that's not the number one complaint. Let's try again.
He doesn't listen.
He doesn't listen.
Doesn't help enough around the house.
Doesn't help enough around the house.
Doesn't understand me.
Doesn't appreciate me. My God. I feel like I've unleashed a tsunami here. I thought I'd get one or two answers. My gosh, it's like a barrage of complaints. No doubt husbands must help more around the house, and that is a major complaint. And yes, it is true that very few wives feel appreciated. But it's still not the number one complaint. Last chance. Anyone?
Wife.
Doesn't give the wife enough attention? Well, that's an impossibility. No wife will ever get enough attention.
Why can't you read my
The male attention, the female need for attention is totally unmatched to the male attention span. You just have to accept that as a law of physics. That's never going to change. Sorry?
Why can't he read my mind?
Why can't he read my mind? Every wife expects their husband to be Houdini, mind reader. There is some truth to that because I hear from many wives when they sit on a couch in front of me with their husbands complaining about the state of their marriages, they often say something like, "He just doesn't get it," which is another way of saying that he doesn't intuit my needs. But it's still not the number one complaint. Last chance.
Dominates.
He doesn't dominate me?
Yeah, he wants to be dominated.
Okay, one second. First of all, we're in the synagogue. We can talk about all that stuff. That's part of my new book, Kosher S&M. We're not talking about that yet. She's complaining that he's too dominating?
Yes.
There's definitely a book in there somewhere. The number one complaint that wives have against their husbands is, he doesn't talk to me. And when he does talk to me, he never talks about his feelings. He never talks about his emotions. He never talks about his fears, his anxieties, his concerns, his worries. And because he doesn't talk to me about his feelings, I therefore feel lonely. Why would a wife feel lonely if her husband doesn't discuss his feelings? What's wrong with him talking about who will pick up the children for after-school activities? What's wrong with him talking about where should we go on his summer vacation? What's wrong with him talking about who will pick up the dry cleaner? Why does a wife feel lonely if her husband doesn't talk about his feelings?
She wants to be nurturing.
To answer that question, we have to go to another question. I'm not going to ask you too many questions tonight. This is the last one. Sigmund Freud fathomed the very deepest aspects of the human mind and the human heart. He was the father of psychoanalysis. And he answered most questions, or so he believed, about human nature. But there was one question he could not answer. And toward the end of his life, he famously said, I cannot answer the question of what is it that a woman wants. I have no clue what a woman wants. Most husbands would agree, I have no idea what my wife wants. What does this woman want from me? A lot of husbands would say, my wife can't be made happy. She's always complaining. She's insatiable. Let's answer the question right now. For the first time in human history, let's answer that question. What is it that a woman wants? Any man or woman here want to answer? What does a woman want? What? Attention. If a woman wants attention, she gets a lot of attention from a newborn baby that never leaves her alone, or her children that are always holding on to her skirt. She can get a lot of attention from her parents. And if she wants to be loved, no one will ever love her like a mother and father. Her own husband may divorce her. When's the last time you heard her parents divorcing their children? I've decided this relationship, son, is not working out. We're going to divorce you. Why do women leave their parents and look for a husband? Because what a woman really wants is not to be loved. Every woman wants to be chosen. Every woman wants to be chosen. Your parents can love you, but they can never choose you. When your mother says to you, you're the prettiest girl in the whole class, you roll your eyes because you know that she has a genetic shotgun to her head that makes her say it. She doesn't mean it. You are her daughter, for goodness sake. She looks at you differently. So she can love you, but she can't choose you. But when a boy in school with 30 other girls in the classroom turns to you and says, you're the prettiest girl in the class, your reaction is, ding! It must be true. Because nothing compelled him to say it. He chose me. And later, when a man chooses you forever, which is why women love the whole idea of marriage, it makes you feel special, unique, distinguished. Every woman wants to be special. And it is a man who makes her feel special when he chooses her. And that's why women want their husbands to talk to them about their emotions. Don't talk to me about matters that you can discuss with somebody else. When you tell me about picking up the kids, you can tell that to a driver or a chauffeur. When you tell me about picking up the dry cleaning, you can tell that to the maid. But when you talk to me about your feelings of failure, When you talk to me about your anxieties and worries and a bad economy, about paying the mortgage, supporting the family, sustaining your job, and you only turn to me, then I suddenly feel essential, necessary. But if you make me feel like you can't discuss that with me, if you make me feel like you don't talk to me about your emotions, I feel lonely because I feel non-essential. I feel superfluous. You are excluding me from the deepest part of yourself. In other words, the loneliness of the American wife today is primarily due to the inability of men to deal with emotions. When's the last time, for any of the wives here, your husband says to you, I'm going out tonight. I'm going to my friend Fred's house. I'm going to have a long, deep talk about my feelings. That would be laughable, right? Honey, I'm sorry, I'm going out tonight. Me and 10 guys, we're going out to the woods to talk about our emotions. We'll be back in the morning. No wife would ever believe it. What he always says is, I'm going out to do something. We're going to play cards. We're going to watch the game. Men don't know how to feel anymore. They only know how to do. They're not masters of their hearts. They're masters of their hands. You give a guy something to fix, he can fix it. Your car is broken, you need a picture put up on the wall, he can do it. If he's not Jewish, of course. But if he's Jewish, he can hire someone to do it. If he's Jewish, he can make the money, God willing, to pay someone else to put a picture on the wall. Because men love being dependable with their hands. Shul needs to raise money to pay its bills. You put it in the hands of 10, 20 men, they're going to go knock on doors, they're going to raise the money. But if you tell them suddenly, come to Shul on Rosh Hashannah and Yom Kippur and tell God how you feel, open a siddur and pray with emotion and with concentration, and over a 10-day period, think about your life and be introspective and meditative. And here's a siddur. Sit there for 6 hours. He's thinking, kill me now. Just shoot me now. Now you begin to understand why not only are women so lonely today, and studies show the loneliest women of all are married women, because their husbands don't talk to them about deep emotional subjects. They come home and they veg in front of a TV watching sports. And now you also understand why God is lonely as well. We only ask God for practical matters. We come to God and we say, I need money for the coming year, and that's why I'm here. It's the day of judgment, and I have tuition bills I have to pay. I have 9 children, thank God. I've met many of you here tonight, and I know some of you have large families as well. How is a family supposed to pay the Jewish tuition bills these days? So there's a couple of answers, right? There's banks that can be robbed, of course. I've already claimed the banks in Englewood, so I don't know if you guys have a mark on the ones here in Great Neck. And God, in His infinite kindness, also gave you an extra kidney. But that will only cover 2-3 kids 1 year at school. That's it. Next year, what are you going to do? Sell your spleen? I mean, you're in trouble. So you come before Hashem at Rosh Hashannah and you say, I have all these needs. And then you have relatives that aren't feeling well. And again, you speak to God about very practical matters. God, I need a refuah shlema. I need their heart beating and their eyes healthy and their arms and legs and all of their sinews and veins all working properly. And we only ever turn to God with very practical matters. You begin to understand why the High Holy Days are such an uncomfortable period for us Jews. Because we men especially, we have no training in being thoughtful We have no training to sit in a synagogue for hours on end and think. That is not what we're trained to do. We're trained to get into the best universities. We're trained to do very well on the SATs. We know that no woman is even interested in marrying us if we're thoughtful. They're interested in marrying us if we're good providers. They don't give a darn about our hearts. Come on, when's the last time a woman... Look, I'm half Persian, I understand these things. My father's from Iran. When's the last time? You know, I speak very often. This is the first time I'm speaking to the Mashadi community. I'm very honored. It's a great honor to be here. It took you guys 44 years to invite me. That's okay. But I speak at Netzach in Los Angeles about once a month. And they have probably 1,000 young Persian singles. And the women are always coming over to me saying to me, Rabbi Shmuley, please introduce me to someone. And I look at them and I say, I have the perfect guy for you. He writes poetry. He stays up the whole night and he watches the sun rise. And then he takes out a pen and he speaks about the beautiful golden rays that illuminate God's earth. After that, he goes and immediately visits his mother. And he sits with his mother for 2 hours and he talks to her about his emotions and his feelings. He then goes to bed Knesset and he prays with so much feeling. And he's a man of heart and a man of emotion. And what's her first question every single time? Come on. No?
Not for me.
What does he do?
What does he do?
He visits his mother, poetry. Yeah, that's nice. Whatever. What does he do? Oh, well, you know, right now he's currently unemployed. Kiss of death. Oh, sorry, Rabbi Shmuley. I forgot to tell you. I slipped my mind. I appreciate your efforts. I'm a lesbian. I know, I should have told you this before. I'm not... Total loss of any interest in a man. So the messages that we men get is, on the one hand, the wives want us to be more feeling, more emotional, yet they will only marry us. And we know how to make money. And once they marry us, suddenly, oh, it's not the money I'm interested in. Talk to me about your heart. Heart? He doesn't even know he has one. No one has ever appreciated his heart. When his parents punished him for not doing his homework, did they care that he had a heart? When Harvard accepted him into their MBA program, they said, actually, you're terrible academically, but it seems as though you have a good heart. So we're going to admit you into this program. No one ever cared about his heart. On Rosh Hashannah, and then Aser Simei Tshuva, the 10 days of repentance, the message is so different. God says to us, I care about your heart. I care about the contents of your heart. I want to know what you really feel. And don't come to me and only ask me for practical matters. It's such a shame that we have vulgarized these 10 days into nothing but some strange deal-making with God, whereby if we fast tomorrow on Tzom Gedalia, and if we say Slichot tonight, and if we blow the shofar, we fast in Kippur, then God might give us a couple of bucks in the coming year. That's about as deep as our relationship with God goes. And it strips the relationship of any kind of meaning. It makes a marriage into a partnership. Look at what we've done to marriage. Why do you think our marriages are so passionless? We don't know how to relate to people on any issue but the practical. Just look at the terminology that we use for dating and marriage. Remember once upon a time, about 100 years ago, before cars really existed, a man would court a woman. So he would arrive, and he would present his car. And she would be at home, and she would determine whether she would receive him or not. Women were in the driver's seat. They were the ones who had the power of relationships. But then the automobile was invented. And now men asked the women out on dates. Everything changed. It was now men who selected who they would ask out. Now look at the way the terminology changes. You're no longer courting, which has a spatial connotation. creating a home. Now, this is my date. Your date, it goes from a spatial connotation to a temporal one. It's a time commitment. This is my date. What does a man mean when he says this is my date? Is he a scientist? I'm dating her. Did you bring carbon-14 with you? Is she some sort of fossil? Then the terminology went even further. We're going out. What does that mean? You're taking someone out. There's nothing romantic. You're going out. Are you going to outer space? What does it mean? The best of all is the one that's currently used. We are seeing each other. Of all the five senses, the most distant of the five is the sense of sight. Notice, Tom doesn't say, I'm smelling Claire tonight. He says, I am seeing Claire tonight. But the most unromantic of all expressions is, this is my partner. A commercial term, which has come to replace soulmate because our relationships are so utterly practical. At this point in the lecture, I'm not sure if these people here are about to jump me. You guys come in peace? Ladies and gentlemen, we have to go back to being human beings with feelings. Our marriages have to have emotion. Our relationship with God has to have emotion. I have a new book that wasn't even supposed to be here. Where's Kosher Jesus? Can I just borrow for a second? I have this book. This wasn't even supposed to be here. This book is being released December 15th. And when we were packing up tonight, so that we accidentally brought some of the copies. It's an embargoed book. I've worked 8 years on writing this book, Kosher Jesus. It's about the Jewish Jesus. It's written for the Jewish and Christian markets. It's a unique book. When I was debating Dr. Michael Brown, he's a famous Jewish Christian. He's a Jew from Long Island, converted to Christianity. He is today the foremost Christian missionary in America, converting Jews to Christianity. We've had about 20 debates around the world. One of them was in the New York Hilton in Manhattan. About 3,000 people were at the debate. You can watch it on YouTube. We're fighting back and forth as to whether Jesus was the Messiah. He suddenly turns to me and he says to me, at the end of the debate, 3,000 people, mostly Christian, he says, Shmuley, do you know where you're going when you die? Are you going to heaven or to hell? Because if you don't believe in Jesus, you are going to hell. Do you know where you're going? And I looked back to him and I said to him, Mike, I know this might surprise you, but I don't give a damn where I'm going. I don't serve God to get something back from Him. I don't serve God so I can escape the eternal barbecue in hell. I don't serve God because if I don't believe in Jesus, they're going to put me in on a rotisserie with an apple in my mouth and I'm going to go around forever and ever while angels cut pieces of me off and make a sandwich or something. I don't serve God to save my own skin from damnation. I serve God to be in a relationship with God, whatever the consequences. And sometimes you get rewarded with a beautiful family and you feel blessed. And sometimes the reward for being a Jew is walking into a gas chamber, knowing that you will die for one reason and one reason only, that you are a Jew. But you will die in that relationship. You will die connected. But it's never about what you get from it or what you don't get from it. It's about being in that relationship. That's true love. That's why we come to Shul on Rosh Hashannah and Yom Kippur. We come to Shul not to ask God for more cash in the coming year. That's vulgar. It's beneath us. We don't even come just to ask for the health of ourselves or even our children. We come to show our children that to be in a relationship with God is the highest form of human living. That to be in a marriage, to be lucky enough to have someone call themselves your husband or your wife, whether you have a beautiful roof over your head or whether you're about to be put into foreclosure, that it's a blessing to share your heart with someone who actually cares. It's not about just the practical. We have made our lives so utterly practical. We have robbed our lives of its magic. And by the way, our kids are watching. Our kids are watching, and they become more cynical. Narcissism is dominating our culture because everyone's thinking, what's in it for me? Let me just conclude by saying, I'm writing a book now about why men cheat on their marriages, why men cheat on their relationships. So that'll be my final question to you. Tell me, anyone here, volunteer, why do men, there's been so many scandals recently. We had Elliot Smith, we had Anthony Weiner, we had Bill Clinton, who just attacked Benjamin Netanyahu last week, which was a nice little flourish that he added. Why are there so many men who are unfaithful? Why do men cheat on their marriages? Anyone? Go ahead. They cheat for 2 reasons, is that what you're telling me? You're not telling me you cheated 2 times. Why do men cheat on their marriages? Anyone?
Nobody here cheats, so nobody knows.
True. But let's just venture a guess for all those scoundrels who aren't in this room. Lack of attention? Then you're blaming the wife, right? It's the wife's fault? So if a wife gives her husband enough attention, he won't cheat. Studies actually show, many studies actually show that's not true. Studies show that if a wife cheats, it's because of lack of attention. But 87% of men who cheat on their wives love their wives. It's not lack of attention. Anyone else?
Does it have to do with
Like diversity.
People are wicked from then why are women cheating? Adam, first to men and women.
Oh, here they will.
Last chance, go ahead.
There are 4 or 5 that many. 1 minute. Diversity, I guess.
So men need diversity. But they still have self-control.
How about 1 minute?
And have chicken soup every day.
Okay. The reason why men cheat on their wives, and with this we'll close the circle, is believe it or not, they're looking for non-practical relationships. They're looking to have one person with whom they can speak about something that's actually emotional. Men do not cheat for sex. It's not for physical reasons. In fact, 60% of all male affairs do not involve any physical contact whatsoever. Their relationship with their wife has become so consumed by everyday practicality that they begin to feel like they're an ATM. They begin to feel they're only appreciated in their marriage or to their children for what they provide. And suddenly, someone comes along that makes them feel, you're special just the way you are. I'll just prove it for a moment. When Tiger Woods cheated with every woman that had a pulse, that was basically the criteria. You have a pulse? Good enough. I was on the Joy Behar show on CNN, and she said, there were 2 of us on the panel. Joy says, Shmuley, why do men cheat? She asks me, this other guy. So the other guy says, I'm going to ask this for the rabbi. He says, it's simple. A rich and famous guy like Tiger Woods, he's got money, he's famous. He cheats because men love variety. He said that. Men love variety. It's simple. I said, really? Tiger Woods cheated because men love variety? Then why did he cheat with the same woman 15 times over? Anyone ever seen the pictures of the women he cheated with? They were identical. They were indistinguishable from one another. They were all carbon copies of his wife. They were all, if he wanted variety, he would have cheated with an African-American woman, an Asian woman, a Jewish woman. Instead, they were all Nordic bombshells, blonde hair, blue-eyed, all the same. But I said on that show, I said, you know what you're going to find? You're going to find that Tiger Woods, I said, I bet you're going to find that he sent to each one of these women a text or a message or an email that said, that poured his heart out to them. You're going to find that. That's what's going to do him in. And sure enough, What destroyed him were all these texts he wrote to these women about how I love you. Now, why didn't he tell his own wife? Why didn't he tell his wife this? He could have saved his career. He could have saved his life. Because we allow our marriages to become so practical that we never talk about emotional subjects. That's the irony of marriage. That's why I always say husbands and wives have to have a practical free zone from 9 o'clock and on where nothing practical is discussed. But the same thing is true of our relationship with God. That's what the 10 days of repentance, the Aseret Yemei Teshuvah are all about. It is Purim is a practical matter. God saved us from Haman. Chanukah, He saved us from the Greeks. Passover, Pesach, He saved us from Paro. And Aseret Yemei Teshuvah, it's the 10 days of intimacy where we can feel closer to God. Utilize that time. Make it special. When you daven tonight, don't ask anything of God. Give Him your heart. Feel closer to God. Make your Judaism a deeply emotional experience. And I promise you, it will electrify your children. They will become better people as a result because they will learn to do things without thinking what they get in return. They will become more selfless. And to the extent that you create marriages like that have a deep emotional connection, you won't have to work so hard on disciplining your kids. Because your children will be inspired by your examples. All right, Shana Tova. God bless you.